Some wonders would shape the course of architecture. Others would become shrines for all eternity. Throughout history, they continue to enthrall and inspire as the 7 wonders of ancient Egypt. The kings of ancient Egypt were no mere mortals. They were gods incarnate. And the ancient Egyptians cared more for the burial of their kings than any other nation that has existed. 3,500 years ago, they began to build the most revered cemetery on Earth. The Valley of the Kings is the most magnificent burial ground in the world. 62 tombs cut deep into the rock, overflowing with the treasures of ancient Egypt. Pharaohs like Tutankhamun and Ramesses the Great were laid to rest here. But before long, this remote valley would become a haven for treasure hunters. Tomb raiders and vandals would break into the secret underground world. They were followed centuries later by European explorers and adventure-seeking treasure hunters like Belzoni. Then, archaeologists like Howard Carter would make breathtaking discoveries and begin to piece together the lives of the pharaohs. The oldest tomb in the valley belonged to the king Thutmose I from the 16th century BC.
Probably this was chosen as a site for it because of this cleft, which made it easier to begin the cutting of the tomb itself. Hidden tombs were the goals for these early kings.
For the next 500 years, the pharaohs would follow Thutmose I and be buried here in the valley. Ted Brock has been responsible for creating a 3-dimensional map of the entire valley and knows every tomb.
Building a tomb was probably in many ways quite similar to quarrying operations that they were carrying out for hundreds or even thousands of years. And so it was a similar process of cutting into the rock, cutting out pieces of rock and removing it.
It was hot, dirty, and dangerous work.
So they'd have groups of people working there, cutting away at the rock face, tunneling in and hauling the debris away. And behind them would be the finishers coming along with the copper and bronze tools, smoothing down the walls, truing them up, and then followed up by the people plastering the walls in preparation for the decoration. So you had all these various steps going on at the same time. The tombs were decorated with these descriptions of the underworld. It was taking this hole in the rock and making it the underworld itself.
Most of the tombs in the Valley of the Kings are unfinished, the work cut short by the king's death. But the tomb of Seti I is virtually complete. It was unearthed by the famous treasure hunter Giovanni Battista Belzoni, who in 1817 was lucky enough to chance upon the longest and deepest of all the tombs. Belzoni described finding it as the best day in his life. But it wasn't all easy. Once inside, the main chambers were hidden behind a false wall, and in front of this was a well pit 10 meters deep.
He found as he came in that the rear wall was blocked up, except there was a hole which earlier tomb robbers had entered.
Having discovered the secret entrance, Belzoni went on to explore one of the most cavernous tombs ever found. The lowest chamber of all, several hundred feet down in the rock, was where the pharaoh was laid to rest.
This is the burial chamber of Seti I. It's really like a giant sarcophagus with a lid representing the starry sky And the walls describing the sun god's journey through the underworld. And each end of the walls has the protective goddess as found on a sarcophagus.
Here the pharaoh would rest, sealed in state and surrounded by his finest and most valued possessions. The priest and burial party would seal the chamber. But the generations of workers would always be able to remember where each tomb was. And soon, robbers learned where the tombs were. So a royal seal was put over the door lock, but this didn't deter thieves either.
If the central government system was weak and people weren't getting their daily pay and rations, there's a great temptation to go and plunder these tombs.
When the New Kingdom ended, the tombs were abandoned, many stripped of their treasures. Some became shrines, others became hidden. Some may remain undiscovered. But the New Kingdom of ancient Egypt left behind far more wonders than tombs alone. The desire for greatness led some pharaohs to immortalize their grandeur in vast temples. The most splendid